right, so renal system, what is the main purpose of the excretory system? The renal system is just kind of a part of the excretory, but it's just to maintain homeostasis, maintain balance in the body. 3 ways it does this, managing salt levels, getting rid of excess waste, regulating how much water we have, ridding waste, and then regulating electrolyte levels. What are other things involved in excretion? Well, the skin, that's a way to get rid of salts. The liver, that's a way to detoxify stuff. And maybe even lungs, because that's how they get rid of CO2. What are other things involved? Liver, skin, yeah. So what are the 5 excretory organs? So first we have the kidneys, which are like the scrubbers. Afterwards we have the ureter, the urethra. Ureter. We're gonna have the ureter, which will take the fluids from the filtrate from the kidneys. Then we're gonna store it in the bladder, and then from the urethra we're gonna excrete it physically. There's also the renal artery and renal vein. That's what brings the blood to the kidneys to be filtered. What are the 3 structures of the kidney? So there's the cortex, the pelvis, and I want to say the medulla. The renal pelvis, the renal cortex, and then the renal. It's like I have a feeling it's medulla, bro. Oh yeah, it is renal. Renal medulla, renal pelvis, renal cortex. What are nephrons? That's like the functional unit of the kidney. Those are what's responsible for filtering the blood. Where's the glomerulus and loop of Henle located? So the glomerulus is located in the renal cortex, like on the outer part, and then the loops of Henle, those are located in the renal medulla, the middle area. Nephrons kind of sounds like neurons, bro. Okay, so what are 4 things that take place in the system? So this first step was filtration, which is kind of the initial step, filtering it from the Bowman's capsule, from the glomerulus. Second is reabsorption, where the blood will reabsorb some of the things that it needs. Specifically, glucose and amino acids will always be reabsorbed. Secretion is when the blood will secrete things that it doesn't need. And then excretion is just, collecting it into the collecting duct and just getting rid of it. What is the fluid inside of the kidneys called? It's called the filtrate. So 2 divisions of kidneys. There's a renal corpuscle and renal tubule. What is each composed of? So the corpuscle, that is mainly the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule. That is the first place where filtration will occur. Renal tubule, that's like the loops of Henle. That's the, it's not primal, it's distal. There's the distal convoluted tube, and then like the primal, pristal. No, what's the name for it? What's the word of that? Like dorsal? No, not dorsal. It's primal, visceral. No, not visceral. Yeah, I don't remember the name. Okay, wait. Nephrons, functional units. Working tandem. Yeah. Absorption, excretion. Yeah. Pretty boring stuff. Two divisions: renal corpuscle and renal tubule. Where is it talking about that in the slides? (15.4). 2 divisions of kidneys. Maybe it's not that important, but yeah. Okay, what is the glomerulus? That's just a ball of capillaries. They have fenestrians, which allows for filtration to occur. What allows it to fully occur is having blood pressure. If you have enough, you need to have blood pressure for the blood to kind of push through and apply that hydrostatic pressure. Look at that connecting terms, or I might have gone it backward. Or is it the osmotic? Bro, I don't. She's not good, bro. She's not good. What brings and takes away blood? Okay, so glomerulus, ball of capillaries. Blood is brought to it via the renal artery, and it exits via the renal vein. make sure so I don't get it backwards. Oh, it's the proximal tubule and the distal tube. It's renal corpuscle, glomerulus surrounded by the Bowman's capsule. Like I said, renal tubule, that's just the rest of the stuff that takes away from the renal corpuscle. So the proximal convoluted tube, loop of Henle, and then the distal convoluted tube. So glomerulus is a network of capillaries. Okay, so it's not the renal vein, it's actually called the afferent arteriole. Brings blood towards afferent. And then the efferent arrive. Efferent takes blood away from the glomerulus. So the glomerulus is a network of capillaries. So I believe it would be from the renal artery, it'll branch off into the afferent arteriole, which will bring the blood to the glomerulus, and then the efferent arteriole will take away blood from the glomerulus. Blood pressure, so it's hydrostatic pressure, will force the plasma through fenestrations, which are small pores, and that'll filter the blood. Now, from those small pores, it has to go through another layer called the basement membrane. That basement membrane will then have other things on it, which is called podocyte foot particles. Yeah, I don't remember the name. But there's 3 layers, right? So we got the fenestrations on the blood capillary, like in the glomerulus. Then you got the basement membrane, which has small little things as well. And then you got the podocytes, which is like what will filter it to the max, kind of. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, each thing will just hold back large things so that not everything gets filtered through. So big proteins, red blood cells and white blood cells, will not be filtered through, but smaller things like amino acids, electrolytes, glucose, and small waste products will be filtered through. However, again, glucose and amino acids will be reabsorbed mainly. Yeah, okay, that's basically it. Okay. So yeah, what can and what cannot make it? So, amino acids, glucose, electrolytes, and like red blood cells and white blood cells cannot be made out with 2 molecules, amino acids and glucose. Okay, 4 structures of the renal tubule. So first we got the loops of we got the proximal convoluted tubule. Then we got the loops of Henle, which is the descending and ascending. Then we have the what's the other thing called? The distal convoluted tubule. And then after that we have the collecting duct. That's 5, but it's like loops of Henle can be considered 1. So what is the vasa recta? What does it do? That's like a network of capillaries that surround the loops of Henle that help with maintaining the concentration of the renal medulla and other things like that. It just helps with reabsorption. So what is reabsorbed where first? So first we got the proximal convoluted tubule, the PCT, that'll absorb things like ions, like it'll do Na plus, Cl minus, what else? K plus and HCO3 minus. And then when those all get filtered out, then water will follow to maintain all the osmosis balance and stuff like that. So that's what's getting reabsorbed. Then drugs and toxins are getting secreted from the blood, urea, NH3, and H+. And then the net result of the filtrate from the PCT, it'll be like the same concentration, but a lower volume, because the water's following the solute, so it'll reduce the volume of the overall filtrate, but the concentration will stay the same because it's still staying balanced. So two parts to the loop of Henle, ascending and descending. So first we have the descending. Oh, what is the primary function of the structure? Is just to help with reabsorption and secretion, water and salt reabsorption specifically. Perhaps I should have known that. So what does the first part do? So the first part has aquapores on it, so it's only allowing water to go out. So yeah, like water will just go out. So as the water flows out, because the renal medulla is super salty, the concentration is really salty, so then the water will want to get out of the loop of Henle, and then that water will be quickly absorbed by the vasa recta, which will then allow the concentration of salt to be very high in the renal medulla. Now, what will happen to filtrate? So the filtrate will have a lower volume but have the same concentration, like have an increased like solutes, so it'll be like more concentrated. What is the second part? That's the ascending loop of Henle. What is the only thing that is permeable to? It's Na and Cl, like salts, and the Na plus and Cl minus will be taken out, and that's kind of what contributes to the salty concentration in the renal medulla. So what is the net result? Or actually, wait, maybe the salt, okay, it says here that salt is reabsorbed into the vasa recta, so maybe that's what happens then. But the salt concentration will decrease, so in all, I feel like it'll be like the same concentration as before going into the loop of Henle. So, yeah. So how does the length of loops of Henle differ in different organisms? So for organisms with like abundance of water, like us humans or like cows and stuff like that, they'll have like shorter loops of Henle because they don't have to like they got water, right? So they don't have to like stress about like, yo, no, not enough water. So they're like, yeah, we could piss it out as chill, right? But now, like desert animals, like the example they give is desert rats. They have longer loops of Henle so that they have more area, more chance to reabsorb more water, so that it's not an issue. Like they have more water in their blood and like they don't have to die, right? So, yeah. How does salt concentration differ in the kidney? So as you go deeper into the kidney, it's going to be increased concentration. So the outermost, like the renal cortex, will not be that salty. The medulla will be more salty, and the renal duct, I believe, would be even more salty. What is reabsorbed and secreted in the DCT, the distal convoluted tubule? I'm actually not too sure. I believe it would just be salts and water, I feel like. Yeah, so it says cortex is the least concentrated, outer medulla is the more concentrated, and inner medulla is the most concentrated. So the distal convoluted tubule will reabsorb ions again, NaCl and K2 plus, and water. It'll secrete K plus and H plus. The net result for the filtrate depends on hormone regulation. So this is the one that's controlled by hormone regulation. So it all just depends. Water will follow where the ions go to maintain balance, but it depends on what the hormones feel like doing. What is a sodium chloride co-transporter? So sodium chloride co-transporter. So it'll allow sodium and chloride to go through, right? But then because co-transport uses the like concentration, like the movement of one like thing to move the other one, right? I guess the concentration gradient. So sodium chloride will go through, and then the water will follow through with it, and then water will just go through using that co-transporter. So yeah, it moves the sodium and chloride back into the blood, and then water will follow through. So what would happen to the volume and concentration of urine? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think that's all. What is reabsorbed and secreted in the collecting duct? Wait, what? We still do stuff? It says Na plus, Cl minus, water, urea, and bicarbonate. Secreted K plus, H plus, and bicarbonate. So the main difference here is that bicarbonate and urea spawn in. Net result depends on hormone, but generally will increase in concentration. In the video, they said not to worry too much about what specifics are getting absorbed and reabsorbed, secreted and reabsorbed, so I'm not too worried about that. Anyways, what are the two hormones in the renal system? What do these do? So first we got aldosterone, and then we got aldosterone, and then we got ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So what does each do? So antidiuretic hormone will make you retain water. Aldosterone will make you want to pee more, right? Oh wait, one thing to say. The renal calyx is the tubes that bring you to the renal pelvis, and then the renal pelvis will connect to the ureter. So, okay, so I believe I was wrong. Antidiuretic is responsible for increased water reabsorption. Aldosterone is responsible for increased sodium absorption to regulate water and salt balance. So, what do these hormones indirectly control due to reabsorption? They indirectly control blood pressure. They control blood pressure. I feel like I saw something. Okay. Well, I believe it would be blood pressure, because if you're excreting more water, then you're going to have lower blood pressure, lower blood volume. So where does ADH work? So it works in the distal convoluted tubule. So remember the co-transporter? So ADH will cause aquapoins to attach to the distal tubule, and it'll just cause water to come in from the blood, from the fluid into the blood. So then you increase water reabsorption. That's basically what it does. Cell lining distal tubular collecting duct, aquaporin. Yeah, then the things will just let water go through, and it'll all be good. ADH primarily acts on the collecting duct, largely impermeable to water unless ADH. Yeah, so that's why the co-transporter is needed. So now that brings the thing called the juxtaglomerular apparatus. So it measures blood pressure if it's too high or too low. However, it doesn't directly measure blood pressure. It measures the ion concentration, like the salt concentration in the blood. Because if you have high concentration of salt, that means you're retaining more water, right? But if you have a low concentration of salt, that means you have a lot of water in the blood. So that means you gotta balance it out. I think. So JGA will release renin, which will increase blood pressure. So yeah, monitors sodium chloride concentration, provides information, works to increase. Yeah, and maybe just know that it monitors sodium chloride. Let me ask that a question. Wait, so how does the juxta thing work? Like, wait, what are the cells called? Glomerular cells? Wait, what are glomerular cells again? Oh, the glomerula. That's like the thing, Yo, I'm glomerulus. Bro, this is so cooked, bro. All this information is be floating around my head, and like, it's cooked. So if the concentration is low, it will be like, damn, we have too much water infiltrate. We should absorb more water. Damn, it says it works there. So monitors blood pressure and sodium concentration. Wait, so what does it measure? Wait, sodium concentration in what? In the filtrate within the distal convoluted tubule. So if the sodium concentration is too low, it'll signal the JGA to release renin, which will initiate the cascade to increase sodium water reabsorption. Okay, so I think that was right. So now this will release renin, and that'll cause like aldosterone to work, I think. So aldosterone will increase Na plus reabsorption in the distal convoluted tubule. It'll do this by, I believe, doing a similar thing to what ADH did. It was just like, what would it even do? Would it put like a transporter thing? Whoa, there's the raw system. Wait, what is the aldosterone? How does aldosterone work? Aldosterone, okay, yeah, so it stimulates the production of sodium potassium pumps and sodium channels in the tubule cell membrane. That'll cause more sodium ions to be reabsorbed. Then that'll cause more water to follow through with osmosis, and then you're going to have higher blood volume and higher blood pressure. So does that mean, so is ROS and aldosterone independent? No, it's not. ROS is actually named for its key. Oh, let's see. When renin is released to the juxtaposition apparatus, it initiates the cascade that produces angiotensin, which then stimulates the adrenal glands to release aldosterone. Aldosterone acts downstream in the system, so these are all connected. So let's see. So dehydration, lower blood volume, lower blood pressure. That means the juxtamuscular apparatus will be like, yo, this is not good. So we're going to release some renin. Renin is going to go hit up angiotensinogen. Then it'll activate angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Then angiotensin 1 will make its way around, and it'll be activated by ACE, which comes from the lungs. What? To become angiotensin 2, which is important. That's like the activated form. Then it's going to go and it's going to cause four main things. It's going to cause thirst. It's going to cause aldosterone production. It's going to cause vasoconstriction to increase blood pressure. And it's going to cause ADH to be produced. Okay, so they're going to produce both ADH and aldosterone. Now the aldosterone will be like, yo, we need to pump in some more NaCl and get some water in. So it's going to put some channel proteins and protein pumps onto that freaking DCR membrane, and then it'll reabsorb NaCl back into the blood. Water will follow via osmosis, and then we'll all be happy. Now ADH, in comparison, it'll put some aquaporin on the freaking cell wall membrane thing, and then it'll take water in more. Or no, not aquaporin, it'll take the co-transporters, right? Wait, no. Co-transporters are default. They're the default skin. So, wait, what does the freaking ADH do? Oh yeah, ADH aquaporins into the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. Yeah, okay. So now, yeah, that's basically that's what it is. Okay, done. So where does aldosterone work? What does it do? Aldosterone, I already talked about it. What do diuretics do? Diuretics, they make you want to pee more. They don't do reabsorption that much. So two ways that they work, they will just block the co-transport, I believe. They'll be like, yo, like you don't need to reabsorb no water, and more water will be staying in. So they're gonna diminish sodium reabsorption, and they're also going to block ADH receptors. Difference between marine and freshwater fish. So marine fish are in salty conditions. Therefore, they are hypotonic compared to the environment. That means the water wants to leave the fish into the water to balance the concentration. So that's not good. So that makes marine fish want to hold on to more water, reabsorb more water. So they're going to pee highly concentrated urine, and they're going to drink a lot of water. Now, freshwater fish, they are hypertonic compared to the water. So water is trying to go into them. So that means they drink a little bit of water and they pee a lot. So yeah. How do different organisms dispose of nitrogenous wastes? So humans, mammals, birds, we use urea. Then there's things that produce ammonia, like fish. Then there's uric acid, which is like reptiles. Or no, I think reptiles is urea. Amphibians. Sharks. Oh wait, no, I'm wrong. Okay, ammonia is aquatic animals. Urea is mammals, amphibians, and sharks. Wait, so now amphibians and mammals are grouped together now? And then uric acid is birds, reptiles, insects, and snails. Interesting. So uric acid. Interesting. Okay, that's all. Damn, why the thing sound